Hello and welcome back. I have to confess something that's been weighing on my mind lately. Something many of you have probably noticed too if you've been following the recent episodes closely. It has to do with Carly's home life and the glaring lack of protection around her, despite everything she's endured. Here is a woman who was once married to one of the most powerful and dangerous men in Port Charles, Sonny Corinthos himself, portrayed with such intensity by Maurice Benard. Sonny's world was built on power, alliances, and constant threats from rival families and enemies who would stop at nothing to strike at him through the people he loved. In the older storylines we all remember so fondly, Sonny's compound felt like a fortress, with guards, protocols, and a sense of calculated caution that kept the tension high but believable. Carly lived in that world, survived it, and even thrived in it at times. Yet in these current chapters, her house seems to have all the security of an open community center. Anyone can simply walk right in. No coded gates at the entrance, no reliable intercom system to announce visitors, not even a basic doorbell that consistently signals someone at the front door or back porch. It's astonishing, isn't it? After all these years of mob wars, kidnappings, and vendettas that have touched every corner of her life, Carly remains as exposed as if she were living an ordinary suburban existence with no history of danger at all. Many longtime fans, just like us, have taken to social media to share their surprise and occasional frustration about this very detail, and I find myself nodding along with so many of their observations. One viewer put it so plainly: there doesn't seem to be any security gate requiring a code or an intercom to let her know someone is approaching. Another remarked that she doesn't even have a working doorbell at the front entrance, let alone anything protecting the back porch area. Comments like these have sparked lively discussions, with people pointing out that this same openness exists almost everywhere in Port Charles: the offices of Laura, Nina, Willow, and Alexis, the Grand Windermere estate, and even Sonny's own properties. As one thoughtful fan observed, if characters couldn't simply stroll through any door at any time, it wouldn't feel like a classic daytime drama anymore. But the lack of realism can still be a bit jarring after decades of watching these same characters face life-or-death situations. And then there are the comparisons to our real world that really make you pause. One viewer drew a parallel to high-profile, real-life incidents, noting how even in cases involving political protests or attacks on prominent figures such as unidentified assailants striking on private property with tragic consequences, people often respond by tightening security measures dramatically. Yet in Port Charles, it sometimes feels as though the dock area is ironically safer than the homes of its most high-risk residents. These observations aren't meant to diminish the show. They simply reflect how deeply we care about the consistency of the world we've invested so much of our time and hearts into over the years. What strikes me most profoundly, though, is how this very vulnerability, this practical hole in Carly's daily safety, is now actively propelling the current storyline into darker, more intense territory. It's as if the writers have taken this oversight and turned it into the catalyst for a fresh wave of danger that Carly is confronting head-on. And the result is creating a new layer of psychological strain and obsession that feels both raw and deeply personal. The ease with which uninvited individuals can slip into our home unnoticed has already set the stage for intrusions that blur the line between physical threat and emotional turmoil. I remember watching Carly rebuild her life after so many betrayals and losses, from the heartbreaking custody battles to the complicated reunions with Sonny, and yet this current chapter feels uniquely intimate because it stems from something so basic: the simple failure to secure the space where she should feel safest. It leaves me wondering, as I'm sure it does many of you, whether this exposure will finally push Carly toward demanding real protection, or whether it will deepen the obsessive patterns we've seen her battle before, those moments when danger becomes almost addictive because it's the only constant she's known. This brings me to the heart of the current drama that has me completely riveted: Carly's intricate entanglements with Valentine Cassadine and Jack Brennan, with Nina Reeves hovering as both a potential ally and a source of further complication. Over the years, I've watched Valentine evolve from a calculated Cassadine villain into a far more nuanced figure, charming, dangerous, and capable of surprising loyalty. His alliance with Carly feels electric on screen, especially in the private moments where they appear to be collaborating on a high-stakes plan to bring down Brennan. There are hints that Valentine may even be using her home as a discreet meeting point or safe haven, which only heightens the risk given the lack of security. And then there's Brennan himself, whose WSB background and layered motivations have drawn Carly into a passionate but deceptive connection. Their relationship carried genuine heat, yet it was built on layers of strategy, with Carly apparently sleeping with him as part of a larger scheme tied to Valentine's larger objectives. When Brennan manages to enter her house undetected precisely because of that glaring security gap and stumbles upon Carly in an intimate moment with Valentine, the explosion of rage, heartbreak, and betrayal is palpable. I felt my own pulse quicken right along with the characters. The performances are so raw and committed that it transports you straight into the living room with them. As someone who has cheered for Carly through every romantic high and devastating low, I have mixed feelings about this development. On one hand, it showcases her strength and cunning in ways that remind me of the bold choices she made in her younger years, always fighting for control, even when the odds were stacked against her. Teaming up with Valentine against Brennan adds a delicious complexity, blending romance, revenge, and survival in that classic General Hospital style. Yet, I can't help but worry about the emotional toll. This breach isn't just another plot twist. It's feeding into what feels like a new obsession for Carly, one born from violation in her own sanctuary. Will this trauma make her more guarded emotionally? Or will it pull her deeper into risky alliances that could endanger not only herself, but her daughter Jocelyn as well? I've seen her overcome kidnappings, shootings, and betrayals before, but this chapter feels particularly intimate because it strikes at the very heart of where she should feel secure. Nina's role in all of this only enriches the tapestry. We longtime viewers know the turbulent history between Carly and Nina rivalries that have spanned custody fights, business battles, and shared connections to Sunny and Valentine. Now, with Nina potentially horrified by Brennan's entanglement or even considering a reluctant team-up with Valentine to neutralize him, the possibilities for explosive confrontations are endless. I find myself hoping the writers allow for moments of reluctant understanding between these two formidable women, even as old wounds threaten to reopen at the worst possible moment. It's the kind of layered female dynamic that has always been one of the show's greatest strengths, especially for those of us who appreciate stories about resilience, forgiveness, and the complicated bonds women form under pressure. Let me be honest with you, my fellow longtime viewers. While I adore the high-stakes drama that General Hospital delivers 5 days a week without fail, there are moments when the lack of practical details like proper security for characters living such perilous lives pulls me slightly out of the immersion. We've seen this pattern repeated across Port Charles for years. Doors that swing open freely, offices that feel more like public forums than private spaces. I understand the narrative necessity. Without that openness, many of the surprise encounters and rapid-fire revelations that define the show simply wouldn't happen. It's what keeps the pace brisk and the emotions flowing. Still, after investing more than 40 years in these characters, a small part of me wishes the creative team would occasionally acknowledge the realism gap. It would make the genuine dangers feel even more visceral and earned when they arrive. That said, I have tremendous faith in the writers and the cast. They've guided Carly through incredible arcs of growth, loss, and rebirth, and this current storyline with Valentine, Brennan, and the ripple effects on Nina has the potential to reveal even greater depths to her character. Will she finally secure real protection, both physical and emotional? Or will this new obsession become another chapter in her endless test of strength? These are the questions that keep me returning to my television each afternoon, eager to see what Port Charles has in store. What has struck me deeply lately is how Carly's glaring lack of security at home has transformed from a simple production oversight into the catalyst for something much more dangerous. New enemies are beginning to surface, individuals who seem far more strategic and ruthless than some of the familiar threats from years past. These emerging adversaries are taking full advantage of the fact that Carly remains remarkably exposed, despite her history as the ex-wife of one of Port Charles's most powerful figures. This development is demonstrating that the storyline is moving into even deeper and riskier territory than many of us anticipated. The latest twists suggest that Carly is becoming the central weak spot in the fabric of General Hospital's current narrative. Her entanglements with Valentine Cassadine and Jack Brennan have not only created passionate drama, but have also invited new dangers directly into her life. Because anyone can still stroll through her front door unnoticed, these fresh foes are exploiting that very openness to create moments of genuine terror and betrayal. I've seen Carly weather storms before, the mob wars, the custody battles, the heartbreaks with Sonny, but this feels uniquely personal and invasive. It's as if the writers are deliberately showing us that Carly's home has become the soft underbelly of the entire canvas, the place where one well-timed strike could ripple outward and shake the foundations of so many other lives in town. My dear longtime friends who tune in with me, those of us in our 60s and beyond who remember when Carly first arrived as a whirlwind of trouble, I suspect many of you share my mix of excitement and quiet worry. This escalation is proving the story is going much further than before, building toward what could easily become one of the most significant catastrophes we've witnessed in recent years. Will these new enemies succeed in using Carly's vulnerability to tear apart alliances with Nina, Valentine, and even lingering echoes of Sonny's world? Or will the impending disaster finally force her to demand the protection she has always deserved?